Meanwhile, President Trump has been diagnosed with a chronic condition affecting the veins in his legs. Photos of the president's swollen ankles and bruised hands have gained a lot of attention on social media. Now the White House says he has chronic venous insufficiency, a condition where veins have trouble moving blood back to the heart. ABC News medical contributor Dr. Lok Patel is here with more on this. So, Dr. Patel, obviously you don't treat the president, but can you just explain more about what chronic venous insufficiency is and what the symptoms are?
Absolutely, Diane. Chronic venous insufficiency is actually a benign and very common condition, especially in individuals above the age of 50, in which there is some difficulty with the veins in pumping blood back to the heart. So some of it tends to pool down in the legs, causing symptoms such as swelling, fullness, or even discomfort or pain. And for some reason, this can happen in certain individuals because of family history. But as I mentioned, there's other conditions such as age, obesity, and pregnancy as well that can actually lead to this symptom.
What's happening, folks? Adam is here. So what just happened, guys? The threat this time isn't coming from prosecutors or political opponents. It's coming from inside Trump's own body: chronic venous insufficiency, visible leg swelling, bruising from high-dose aspirin taken against medical advice, severe sleep deprivation, and speeches unraveling into disjointed rambling. And his response to these reports isn't calm reassurance. It's volcanic rage. That fury is itself the most telling symptom.
Thank you very much, everybody.
We saw the bruising on your hand. Are you okay?
Very good.
You good?
I clipped it on the table. So I put a little, what do they call it, cream on it, but I clipped it. I would say take aspirin if you like your heart, but don't take aspirin if you don't want to have a little bruising. You know, if you take I take the big aspirin. And when you take the big aspirin, they tell you you're bruised. The doctor said, you don't have to take that, sir. You're very healthy. I said, I'm not taking any chances. So anyway, but that's one of the side effects of taking aspirin. Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
A genuinely healthy, secure person shakes off health rumors. They don't melt down over them. The rage is a confession. What elevates this from a personal medical crisis to a political earthquake is the polling. The numbers are brutal and they are unignorable. Approximately 60% of the American electorate now believes that Donald Trump is simply too old for the presidency. 60%. That is not a fringe minority or a partisan sliver. That is a commanding majority of the nation looking at their leader and concluding that he is not fit for the rigors of the job.
Amid the gridlock in the nation's capital, a new ABC News Washington Post Ipsos poll finds nearly 60% of Americans disapprove of Trump's handling of the government, and nearly two-thirds believe the U.S. is headed in the wrong direction.
I woke up to Donald Trump threatening nuclear war on the Iranian people. He literally said, quote, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. He is obviously unwell. From the slurred speeches to his inability to stay awake during important meetings, these mysterious bruises, and his bragging about the cognitive tests, right? We know he's unwell. But this statement on Truth Social pointed to something else. He is unfit and unable to carry forward his duties as commander-in-chief.
This is not a static figure either. It has swollen significantly over the past few years, tracking perfectly with the increasing visibility of his physical struggles. And these fresh health revelations, the images of swelling, the talk of risky self-medication, the whispers of cognitive slippage are pouring gasoline on that already raging fire. For voters, the abstract fear of an aging leader has suddenly acquired a face, a gait, a speech pattern. They are connecting the dots between the reports and what they see with their own eyes, and the conclusion they're reaching is devastating for Trump's political survival.
On another note, I know that many in the media have been speculating about bruising on the president's hand and also swelling in the president's legs. So in the effort of transparency, the president wanted me to share a note from his physician with all of you today. In recent weeks, President Trump noted mild swelling in his lower legs. In keeping with routine medical care and out of an abundance of caution, this concern was thoroughly evaluated by the White House medical unit. The president underwent a comprehensive examination, including diagnostic vascular studies. Bilateral lower extremity venous Doppler ultrasounds were performed and revealed chronic venous insufficiency, a benign and common condition, particularly in individuals over the age of 70. Importantly, there was no evidence of deep vein thrombosis or arterial disease.
Fitness for office is not a peripheral attack line. It is a foundational requirement for any human being who holds the nuclear codes and commands the world's most powerful military. And right now, the daily news cycle is a buffet of evidence suggesting that Trump might not meet that standard. Let's drill into the aspirin situation, because it stands out as particularly bizarre and indicative of deeper judgment problems. Trump is reportedly self-administering high doses of aspirin not for a doctor-diagnosed condition, but apparently to manage or conceal bruising on his hands.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta. So Sanjay, sticking to the facts here, we have seen pictures of Trump's hands. He has had bruises on his hands, and we've also seen pictures of swollen ankles. These are all, legitimate photographs and actual things. What is going on here?
Yeah, if I can, just for a second, Jake, a little preamble. When we've approached things like this, and I've been doing this a long time, obviously we see the same things that the public is seeing here. A couple things. We hear from his doctors because we want to rely, as you're pointing out, on data, evidence, and facts when it comes to the president's health. We do talk to a team of other doctors as well, emergency room doctors, cardiologists, gerontologists, vascular surgeons, to also weigh in on what's going on with the president. But so when you specifically talk about his ankles and his hands, for example, something people have noticed, what his doctors have said is that this is due to something known as chronic venous insufficiency. Basically, the blood is not leaving the extremities as well as it should, and he gets swelling. It's not uncommon. Over the age of 50, about 5% of adults have it. As you get older, he's going to be 80 next year. Even more people have it, close to 25% of people, according to some studies.
Any competent cardiologist will tell you that high-dose aspirin therapy without medical supervision is a walk on a razor's edge. It dramatically increases the risk of internal bleeding, gastrointestinal hemorrhages, and a host of other serious complications. This is not a supplement. This is a potent medication with potentially lethal side effects, and Trump is reportedly taking it against the advice of physicians because he doesn't want the world to see bruises. This raises a series of deeply uncomfortable questions. Why is he bruising so easily and so visibly? Is there an underlying bleeding or clotting disorder that is being hidden from the public? Is there a more serious vascular pathology at work? Or is this simply an act of staggering vanity? A man so obsessed with projecting an image of invincibility that he will risk his own health to cover up the physical signs of aging? Any of those answers is disqualifying. None of them suggest a man who possesses the sound judgment necessary to be President of the United States. A leader who self-medicates to manage his image is a leader who makes dangerous decisions in other realms. Then there is the cognitive test obsession, a behavior that has become a running theme of Trump's public appearances. He brings it up constantly, unprompted, crowing about perfect scores as if they were championship golf rounds. He seems to believe that reciting a few words backwards on a clinical screening test is definitive proof of a towering intellect. But mental health professionals will tell you that this very obsession is a red flag. People who are cognitively robust do not spend their waking hours fixating on proving they aren't demented. They don't build their self-worth around a 10-minute screening tool. Trump's compulsive need to showcase his test results, his constant bragging about his mental acuity, is the behavior of someone who is wrestling with profound internal doubt. It is a defensive posture born of fear. He is not trying to convince the public. He is trying to convince himself. And that constant, desperate need for validation about one's own brain function is, paradoxically, one of the clearest indicators of cognitive concern. The vascular issues are not fabricated oppo research. They are documented medical diagnoses. Trump has chronic venous insufficiency, a condition where the valves in the leg veins fail to pump blood back to the heart efficiently. The result is visible swelling, discomfort, and a clear signal that the cardiovascular system is under significant strain. Now, venous insufficiency by itself is not an immediate mortal threat, But it is not an isolated ailment either. It is a symptom of broader systemic stress. And when you layer that condition on top of chronic sleep deprivation, a diet composed almost entirely of fast food staples, a complete absence of meaningful exercise, and the crushing psychological weight of simultaneous international and domestic crises, you are no longer looking at a manageable health issue. You are looking at a recipe for accelerated decline. The body of a man in his position is not a luxury. It is a national security asset, and that asset is visibly depreciating. The stair incidents are the visual encapsulation of this decline. Viral footage captured Trump visibly struggling to navigate a simple staircase. He was gripping the railings with white knuckles. He looked winded. He looked frail. He looked every one of his years and then some. This footage was captured after an overseas trip, a period of intense stress and, by multiple reports, very little sleep. This is the precise scenario that stress tests a body of advanced age. A younger, healthier man bounces back from a grueling trip with a good night's rest. Trump's recovery appears non-existent. He emerged from that plane looking depleted, and the simple act of descending stairs, a task a fit person does without thinking, became a televised moment of physical fragility. This is not mockery. This is a data point. It is a public stress test that the president failed in front of the world. When you can no longer manage the basic physical logistics of your public appearances, the question of how you are managing the infinitely more complex logistics of the executive branch becomes inescapable. So, what is the true state of Trump's health? How deep does the decline run, and what does it mean for his ability to execute the duties of the most demanding office on the planet? That's what we are dissecting today. Let's enter the medical dimension in full detail. This is a sensitive area. We are discussing an individual's physical condition, and that demands a certain seriousness. But it is also profoundly politically relevant. The president's fitness is not a private affair. The American people possess an absolute right to understand whether the person they elected is physically and mentally capable of discharging their constitutional duties. And if the trajectory of Trump's health is pointing downward, if his capacities are genuinely compromised, that is information voters are constitutionally entitled to possess. Trump's personal physician released a pro forma statement describing him as being in excellent health. But look at that statement with a critical eye, and you realize it is a tissue of vague generalities. It provides no granular data. It does not address, let alone refute, the specific detailed allegations about venous insufficiency, medication misuse, or sleep deprivation. It is the kind of letter you write when the reality is too dangerous to put in writing. It sounds reassuring but communicates nothing. Meanwhile, the counter-narrative, sourced from actual leaks and observable behavior, is rich with specific, troubling detail. Voters are left to decide whether they believe a blanket, unsupported assurance, or the evidence unfolding before their eyes. The venous insufficiency diagnosis dates back months. This is not a sudden, acute illness. It is a chronic, progressive condition. It means the vascular machinery in Trump's legs is failing. Blood pools. Tissues swell. The body is constantly fighting against its own failing plumbing. This is a condition that reflects and exacerbates cardiovascular stress. It is a blinking warning light on the dashboard. When you merge this circulatory weakness with the reported sleep deprivation, you create a toxic physiological stew. Trump reportedly operates on a few hours of sleep per night. Chronic sleep restriction is a known destroyer. It impairs cognitive processing speed, degrades emotional regulation, elevates blood pressure, and accelerates the aging processes. You cannot out-diet or out-medicate a lack of sleep. It corrodes everything. And when you are the commander-in-chief, making life or death calls in the situation room, sleep deprivation is not a quirky personality trait. It is a national security vulnerability. The diet compounds the damage. The reports consistently describe a man subsisting on fast food. This is nutritional nihilism. It is a direct assault on the vascular system already weakened by venous insufficiency. The lack of exercise is another accelerant. The human body, especially at advanced age, requires movement to maintain circulation, to regulate blood sugar, to preserve muscle mass. Trump appears to do none of it. So you have an aging man with documented circulatory failure, running on a few hours of sleep, fueled by processed food, refusing physical activity, and then being subjected to the most intense psychological pressure imaginable from impeachment chatter, war scenarios, and legal threats. That is not a wellness plan. That is a demolition schedule. The rambling speeches are the auditory equivalent of the stare footage. There is a growing archive of public appearances where Trump's train of thought jumps the tracks repeatedly. He says in a coherent line and begins free associating. He repeats phrases over and over as if stuck in a loop. The coherence that once characterized his rally performances, the ability to read a crowd and ride a theme, is fraying. These are not gaffes. A gaffe is a single verbal misstep. This is a pattern of deteriorating executive function, the brain's ability to organize, sequence, and communicate thoughts. When this pattern becomes more frequent, not less, over time, that is a clinical marker of cognitive decline. It is the synapse firing and missing. Deep within Trump's circle, the concern is reportedly palpable. Advisors, the people who see him in unguarded moments, who witness the off-camera reality, are allegedly worried. When the inner sanctum begins to leak anxiety about the principal's fitness, it confirms that what the public glimpses is not the worst of it. The staff sees the full picture, the fatigue, the confusion, the moments of blankness, and their worry is the most credible testimony we have. These are not enemies. These are people whose careers depend on his functioning. If they are frightened, the public should be terrified. So let's synthesize what actually matters in this unfolding crisis. The core reality is that Trump's health is genuinely deteriorating. This is not a fabrication by a hostile media. It is not a political hit job. It is a convergence of documented medical history, observable physical behavior, and internal insider concern. When 60% of the electorate concludes that their leader is too old, that is not a messaging problem. That is a condition that has become self-evident. The political immune system that has protected Trump from so many other controversies offers no defense against the slow, visible erosion of his own body and mind. The second critical element is Trump's reaction. His response is diagnostic. A man who was truly vigorous would ignore the reports or casually dismiss them with a joke. Trump is not doing that. He is convulsing with rage on his communication platform. He is lashing out with disproportionate fury. This defensiveness is the behavior of someone who feels cornered by the truth. He is not angry because the reports are false. He is angry because they are true, and they have breached the wall of invincibility he has constructed. His rage is the admission he will never consciously make. The third factor is the compounding effect. The health crisis does not exist in a vacuum. It sits atop an Iran war mess, an active impeachment and removal conversation, a leak of an unconstitutional election takeover plan, and a Congress sharpening its knives. All these crises feed the stress. The stress feeds the physical decline. The physical decline makes him look weak, which feeds the political crisis. It is a closed loop of destruction, a doom loop where his own decisions to operate outside democratic norms have generated a level of pressure that his aging, ailing body cannot handle. He created the authoritarian mess, and now the mess is breaking his health. The fourth factor points directly to the upcoming midterms. The 60% concern figure is an electoral asteroid heading for Trump's allies. As these health reports continue to surface, as more video of physical struggle emerges, as the speeches grow more disjointed, that number will not decrease. It will harden. It will calcify into a voting bloc. Democrats will not need to make complex arguments about policy. They will simply ask voters if they feel safe with a man in visible decline holding absolute power. The question answers itself. And that dynamic will flip House seats that were previously considered safe. It will fundamentally shift the composition of Congress. The fifth factor is the inevitable invocation of the 25th Amendment. This constitutional mechanism, designed precisely for a president unable to discharge the powers and duties of the office, will move from whispered speculation to open debate. If Trump is genuinely in the grip of a progressive physical and cognitive decline, if he is self-medicating in risky ways, if he is not sleeping enough to maintain basic competence, then the cabinet and the vice president have a duty to act. Congress has a role. The more reports emerge, the more inescapable the constitutional question becomes. Is this man in his current condition capable of being president? And if the evidence says no, the Constitution provides the remedy. The conversation is starting now, and it will intensify with every public sign of weakness. Trump will not, under any circumstances, voluntarily step aside. His psychology has no room for surrender or admission of weakness. He will rage. He will deny. He will flood the zone with disinformation about his health. He will try to project power through increasingly erratic public displays, but he will not walk away. This means the only exit doors are institutional. Impeachment, conviction, removal, or the invocation of the 25th Amendment. Those are the mechanisms. They require political will, and that political will is being manufactured in real time by the daily spectacle of a president in physical freefall. The political impact extends beyond Trump. This is about the branding of the movement he leads. A leader in visible decline, propped up by a defensive medical team and raging at reality, is not a strongman archetype. It is a portrait of frailty. Voters who were attracted to the myth of strength will find that myth shattered by the reality of a man struggling with stairs and swallowing aspirin to hide bruises. The magnetism dissipates. The aura of invincibility evaporates in a cloud of bruising and ragged speech. This does direct damage to Republican turnout and fundraising. It demoralizes the base while terrifying the moderates. The interconnected nature of this crisis is its most striking feature. Trump's authoritarian governance style, his unilateral decision-making, his refusal to delegate or consult, has placed the entire weight of the executive branch on his shoulders alone. Now those shoulders are physically failing. The stress of starting an unauthorized war, the stress of fighting impeachment, the stress of legal accountability, it is all landing on a cardiovascular system compromised by venous insufficiency and a brain starved of sleep. His own model of leadership, hypercentralized and ego-driven, has made his personal health a direct point of systemic vulnerability. The stress is the cause of the decline, and the decline deepens the crisis that causes the stress. It is a perfect, tragic feedback loop that he constructed himself. The aspirin misuse is a microcosm of the larger problem. It demonstrates a willingness to ignore expertise, to operate in secret, and to prioritize image management over genuine wellness. A person who does this with his own body will do it with the body politic. The lack of judgment displayed in self-medicating with high-dose aspirin is the same lack of judgment that bypasses congressional war authorization, that plots to seize control of election infrastructure, that abandons democratic norms. It is all one fabric of self-destructive impulsivity. As we race toward the midterm pivot point, the health narrative will dominate. Every public appearance will be scanned for signs of deterioration. Every speech will be analyzed for coherence. Every physical misstep will be replayed endlessly. The Trump campaign apparatus cannot spin away a swollen leg or a rambling sentence. They cannot fact-check a video of their candidate clinging to a railing. The evidence is visual, auditory, and cumulative. And the 60% of voters who doubt his fitness are not going to be persuaded by a vague physician's letter or a rage-filled social media post. They are going to trust their own eyes. The destination is clear. A president in decline, a Congress empowered by a midterm backlash, and a constitutional mechanism awaiting activation. The only questions are how much further he declines, how much more chaotic his behavior becomes, and whether the institutional guardrails of the 25th Amendment and the impeachment process are deployed before or after some catastrophic failure of judgment. The body and the presidency are failing in tandem. The countdown is visible on our screens every single day. The rage is loud, but the silence of his body's failing functions is louder. And that silence is the sound of the end approaching.